The mishap Olivia Reed slumped against the elevator wall, barely registering the soft ping announcing the lobby. 3 deadlines in one day, the Henderson proposal falling apart at the last minute, and now her laptop charger forgotten on her desk. 50 floors above. Perfect, just perfect. Rain pelted the glass entrance of Blackwood Industries, one of the most prestigious marketing firms in the city. Olivia stared at the downpour. Her reflection a portrait of exhaustion, chestnut hair falling from its once tidy bun, dark circles beneath hazel eyes, and a coffee stain on her cream blouse that perfectly summed up her day. "Not going back upstairs?" she muttered, fumbling for her phone. Jessica would understand. Jessica always understood. Her fingers moved swiftly across the screen as she typed, "This day is endless. 4th revision on the Henderson pitch, a surprise client meeting I wasn't prepared for, and James barely looked up when I presented the quarterly numbers. I stayed until 2 a.m. finishing. Sometimes I wonder if anyone here sees me as more than a task-completing machine. Would it kill him to notice I'm an actual person with dreams beyond these glass walls? I'm so tired of being invisible." Olivia hit send without looking, stuffed her phone into her bag, and pushed through the revolving door into the rain. She made it halfway down the block before realizing she'd forgotten her umbrella too. By the time she reached her apartment, her clothes clung to her skin, and her mood matched the gloomy weather. Olivia kicked off her soggy shoes and peeled away, her wet jacket heading straight for a hot shower. Only afterward, wrapped in her softest robe with a cup of chamomile tea, did she check her phone again. One new message. Her heart stopped. The text she'd sent hadn't gone to Jessica. The contact name at the top of the screen read, "James Blackwood, CEO." "No, no, no," Olivia whispered, her fingers trembling as she scrolled up to confirm her worst fear. There it was, her emotional outburst delivered straight to the most intimidating man she'd ever worked for. James Blackwood, notorious for his exacting standards and professional detachment. The man who had built Blackwood Industries from the ground up, whose piercing blue eyes could silence a boardroom with a glance. The same man who now held her vulnerable confession in his hands. Olivia's mind raced through scenarios, each worse than the last. Being called into his office tomorrow, dismissed for unprofessionalism, or perhaps, worst of all, pitied. With shaking fingers, she opened his response, bracing for the worst. "Perhaps you're right, Olivia. Perhaps I haven't been seeing you clearly. Your work on the Henderson numbers was exceptional. I should have said so. As for being invisible, I think you might be more noticed than you realize." Olivia read the message 3 times, certain she'd misunderstood. This couldn't be James Blackwood responding, the man who communicated exclusively in terse emails and brief nods, the CEO whose rare smiles were discussed like solar eclipses around office water coolers. As she stared at her screen, another message appeared. "The Henderson client loved your approach, by the way. They've agreed to the new proposal. Your perspective was exactly what we needed. I should have acknowledged that today." Olivia sank onto her couch, heart pounding. She had no idea how to respond. Should she apologize? Thank him? Pretend it never happened? Before she could decide, a 3rd message arrived. "We all need to be seen, Olivia. Even those of us who hide behind corner offices and business suits." Her finger hovered over the keyboard for a long moment before she finally typed, "Thank you for understanding. I'm sorry for the inappropriate text." His reply came almost instantly. "Don't be. Sometimes the most honest moments come from mistakes. Get some rest. Tomorrow is a new day." Olivia set her phone down, her mind whirling with confusion. In one accidental text, something fundamental had shifted between them. Tomorrow she would face him across the polished conference table, knowing he had glimpsed beneath her professional veneer and somehow, against all expectations, he hadn't turned away. Hidden depths. Olivia arrived at the office 20 minutes early the next morning, her stomach a tangle of nerves. She'd barely slept, replaying those text messages in her mind, analyzing every word choice, wondering if she'd imagined the entire exchange. The elevator ride to the 50th floor seemed interminable, each floor chime marking her approach toward an inevitably awkward encounter. When the doors slid open, she steeled herself and headed straight to her desk, planning to bury herself in work before the morning meeting. To her surprise, a small paper bag sat in the center of her workspace, alongside a steaming cup from the artisanal coffee shop 3 blocks away. Not the mediocre brew from the office kitchen. Confused, Olivia peeked inside the bag to find a chocolate croissant, her favorite indulgence that she'd mentioned offhand months ago during a team lunch. A small note was attached. "Fuel for the day ahead, JB." "Morning, Liv," chirped Danielle from the adjacent desk. "What's that?" "Nothing," Olivia said quickly, tucking the note into her pocket. "Just grabbed breakfast on the way in." "Well, you'd better hurry. Henderson meeting starts in 15, and Blackwood is already in the conference room." Olivia nearly choked on her first sip of perfectly prepared coffee, exactly how she liked it, with just a splash of almond milk and cinnamon. How did he even know? The conference room hummed with pre-meeting chatter when she entered. James stood at the head of the table, impeccable as always, in a charcoal suit that accentuated his broad shoulders. His dark hair was neatly combed back, revealing the strong angles of his face. Despite approaching 40, only the faint lines at the corners of his eyes hinted at his age, lines that deepened slightly when his gaze met hers. It wasn't a smile exactly, but something in his expression softened for just a moment before he returned to the conversation with Marcus from legal. Olivia slid into her seat, feeling oddly self-conscious as she arranged her portfolio and tablet. "Let's begin," James announced, his authoritative tone instantly silencing the room. "The Henderson account is now secure thanks to the revised proposal. Olivia, would you walk us through the adjustments that won them over?" She froze, unprepared for the spotlight. Typically, James or the account directors presented successful strategies to the team. Of course," she managed, quickly pulling up her notes. As she began explaining the creative approach she'd developed, she felt James watching her with an intensity that made her cheeks warm. "What made you think of repositioning their brand this way?" he asked when she finished. His voice held genuine curiosity rather than his usual crisp efficiency. "Their customer interviews showed a disconnect between perception and reality," Olivia explained, gaining confidence. "They've been marketing sophistication when their most loyal customers value reliability. I thought aligning the messaging would feel more authentic." James nodded thoughtfully. "Excellent insight. Sometimes we need to see beyond what clients think they want to what they actually need." His gaze held hers for an extra beat. "I'd like everyone to take that approach with our upcoming projects." The meeting continued, but something had shifted. James kept bringing her into the conversation, asking her opinion on matters usually reserved for senior team members. Several colleagues glanced at her with surprise, but no one seemed more astonished than Olivia herself. After the meeting, she retreated to her desk, mind spinning. Was this connected to her accidental text, or had her work simply impressed him enough to warrant new attention? Her phone vibrated with a text. "James again. You spoke well in there. You should do it more often." Olivia stared at the message, unsure how to navigate this new dynamic. Before she could respond, a commotion near the elevators caught her attention. The delivery person struggling with an enormous potted plant couldn't possibly be headed for her desk, except he was. "Olivia Reed," he confirmed, placing the elegant peace lily beside her computer. "There must be a mistake," she began. Nope, right here on the order. He handed her the card and departed. With trembling fingers, she opened the small envelope. Thought your desk could use something living. Plants. Thrive when they're noticed. JB, secret admirer. Danielle's voice made her jump. No, just a thank you from a client, Olivia lied, quickly tucking the card away. Throughout the day, she kept catching James watching her from his glass-walled office. Not the usual monitoring glances of a demanding boss, but something more contemplative, as if seeing her for the first time. Twice, he stopped by her desk with questions he could easily have emailed. When the design team hit a creative block on the Westerly campaign, he specifically requested her input at their brainstorming session. As she prepared to leave, a thunderstorm broke outside, rain lashing against the floor-to-ceiling windows. Olivia sighed, remembering her umbrella was still at home. The elevator doors opened, and she was startled to find James inside, holding his briefcase. "Heading out?" he asked. "Yes, just finishing up," she replied, stepping in beside him. The small space suddenly felt electric with his presence. Up close, she could detect the subtle scent of his cologne, something woodsy and elegant. They rode in silence for several floors before he spoke. "I noticed you don't have an umbrella." Olivia looked up, surprised. "I forgot it yesterday. I'm parked in the garage. I could give you a ride home." The offer hung between. She watched him walk away, conflicted emotions churning inside her. The evening had been perfect, but reality waited just hours away. Monday morning would bring them back to Blackwood Industries, to their respective positions in a hierarchy. That made this fragile connection problematic at best. Sleep eluded her that night as questions multiplied in her mind. Was she risking her hard-won professional reputation? Would colleagues assume any future success came from personal favor rather than merit? Was James truly interested in her? Or was this a temporary diversion from his isolated executive existence? Morning brought a text from him. "Thank you for last night. Seeing the real Olivia Reed is becoming my favorite pastime." The words brought both warmth and worry. As she prepared for the work week ahead, Olivia couldn't escape a growing sense of standing at a dangerous precipice. The accidental text had unlocked something unexpected and beautiful, but pursuing it meant risking the career she'd worked so hard to build. By Monday morning, she'd made a decision. Whatever was developing between them required clear boundaries and honest conversation. Her heart might be increasingly invested, but her head needed reassurance that she wasn't making a catastrophic mistake. The company-wide email waiting in her inbox upon arrival changed everything. Annual Blackwood Industries Leadership Retreat. This year's focus, building authentic connections. The attachment listed her name among the attendees, a first. 3 days at a mountain lodge with the executive team. 3 days with James in a setting both professional and removed from their everyday roles. The timing couldn't be more complicated, or more perfect. Truth, revealed Pine Lodge, sat nestled among ancient evergreens, its timber and stone architecture blending harmoniously with the mountainside. As Blackwood Industries executives and senior team members filed into the grand lobby, with its soaring ceiling and massive stone fireplace, Olivia hung back, taking in the scene with a mixture of professional pride and personal trepidation. Her inclusion in this annual leadership retreat marked a significant career milestone. Department heads and rising stars only, never mid-level staff like herself. Yet the professional triumph felt overshadowed by the knowledge that James would be here, navigating the same delicate balance between their evolving personal connection and their workplace roles. They had maintained careful distance all week, their text exchanges continuing, but with a new undercurrent of restraint. Now watching him across the lobby as he greeted the board chairman, Olivia wondered if he regretted that evening by the river. That dance under the stars, Reed, didn't expect to see you here, Thomas Harrington, creative director, interrupted. Her thoughts. Moving up in the world, eh? Must have impressed someone important. The knowing lilt in his voice made her cheeks warm. The Henderson campaign went well, she said neutrally, avoiding his gaze. Sure. The Henderson campaign. Thomas winked before moving on to greet others. The retreat's first day unfolded with presentations and strategic planning sessions. James conducted each meeting with his usual commanding presence, but Olivia caught the subtle glances he sent her way when others were speaking, the careful attention he paid when she contributed ideas. During lunch on the terrace, he managed to position himself at her table, maintaining professional conversation while occasionally brushing his hand against hers beneath the tablecloth. Each small contact sent electricity through her, each shared glance adding to the tension building between them. By evening, when the group gathered for cocktails before dinner, Olivia felt wound so tightly she feared she might shatter. Tomorrow's hike is apparently breathtaking, said Vivian from finance, sidling up to Olivia at the bar, though I hear the trail splits at some point. More challenging route for the adventurous, easier path for the rest of us. I'll probably take the easier one, Olivia admitted, sipping her wine. Mountains aren't really my element. Shame. The view from Eagle Point is supposed to be spectacular. Vivian nodded toward the other side of the room. Though some views are worth appreciating closer to home, wouldn't you say? Following her gaze, Olivia found James watching them, his expression unreadable as he conversed with board members. When their eyes met briefly, something in his look sent warmth spreading through her chest. I don't know what you mean, Olivia said carefully. Vivian laughed softly. Of course you don't, dear. Just remember, office romances are tricky things, especially with someone whose name is on the building. Before Olivia could respond, Vivian drifted away, leaving her with burning cheeks and the uncomfortable realization that their careful dance hadn't gone unnoticed. Dinner passed in a blur of conversation about market trends and competitive analyses. Afterward, most of the group lingered in the lodge's game room for billiards and nightcaps. Needing air and space to think, Olivia slipped outside onto the wide wooden deck that overlooked the valley below. The night was clear, a tapestry of stars spread across the dark sky. She breathed deeply, filling her lungs with pine-scented mountain air, trying to clear her head. Beautiful, isn't it? James's voice came softly from behind her. It is, she agreed without turning, sensing him move to stand beside her at the railing. I was just trying to remember some of those constellations you told me about. He stepped closer, his arm brushing hers as he pointed skyward. Cassiopeia there, the Queen's chair, and there's Cygnus, the swan. For several minutes, they stood in companionable silence, shoulders touching as they gazed at the stars. The sounds of laughter and conversation drifted from inside, but here in the darkness, they existed in their own private world. We need to talk, James, Olivia finally said, turning to face him. His expression grew serious as he nodded. Not here. Too many eyes, too many ears. He glanced back toward the lodge. The trail to the lake is lit at night. Walk with me? The path wound gently downhill through tall pines, solar lights marking the way at intervals. They walked side by side, close but not touching, until the sounds from the lodge faded and the trees opened to reveal a small lake, its surface a perfect mirror reflecting the star-filled sky. I've been thinking about us all week, Olivia began, finding courage in the darkness. About what's happening between us, as have I. James admitted, stopping at the lake's edge. People are noticing, James. There are whispers. Does that bother you? He asked quietly. Yes, no. She sighed in frustration. I've worked incredibly hard to be taken seriously, to earn my place. I don't want anyone thinking I'm advancing because of whatever this is between us. I understand that concern. he said carefully. It's valid. And there's more, she continued, words tumbling out now that she'd begun. You're my boss. You control my professional future. There's an inherent power imbalance that complicates everything. I know, he acknowledged. I've considered all these things, Olivia. Why do you think I've kept my distance for so long? She looked up at him, surprised. How long? In the soft glow of the pathlights, his expression was open, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen before. Since the Montoya presentation last year, you challenged my approach in front of the entire team, respectfully but firmly. You were right, and you weren't afraid to say so. I admired that immensely. That was over a year ago, Olivia said softly. Yes. And I've maintained professional boundaries since then, until your accidental text. A rueful smile crossed his face. It felt like permission to see you, really see you, and to let you see me. He took a step closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. I know the complications, Olivia. I've analyzed every angle, every potential. Problem, it's what I do. And, she prompted, heart racing, and I've never felt like this before, he said simply. Not in 40 years. I've built a company, managed hundreds of people, navigated economic downturns and market shifts. But this, what's happening between us, is the most real thing I've experienced in decades. Moonlight silvered the surface of the lake as Olivia absorbed his words, feeling the last of her defenses crumbling. I don't know how to do this, James, she whispered. I don't know how we make this work without risking everything. Neither do I, he admitted, reaching for her hand, entwining his fingers with hers. But I know I want to try, if you do. What about my position at the company? My reputation? We'll figure it out, together. His free hand came up to gently cup her cheek. I can transfer supervision of your role to another executive. We can be discreet while we see where this leads. But Olivia, I don't want to go back to being just your boss. Not now that I know the woman behind those brilliant presentations. She looked up into his eyes, seeing the sincerity there, the same vulnerability she felt in her own heart. That accidental text was the most embarrassing moment of my professional life, she said with a small laugh. That accidental text was the moment I stopped hiding, he responded, his voice deepening. It may have been sent to a wrong number, Olivia, but somehow it found exactly the right heart. The final barrier between them dissolved with his words. When James lowered his head to kiss her, Olivia rose to meet him, her arms sliding around his neck as his encircled her waist. Growing connection. The sleek black Audi glided through rain-slicked streets, its interior a cocoon of warm leather and soft classical music. Olivia sat in the passenger seat, acutely aware of James's presence beside her, his strong hands confident on the steering wheel. The space between them hummed with unspoken questions. Take the next left, she directed, breaking a silence that had stretched for several blocks. You live in Westridge? James asked, genuine surprise coloring his voice. The less fashionable. North End, Olivia clarified with a small smile. It's an old building, but I love the character. I grew up in North Westridge, he said, the admission sounding almost confessional, on Maple Street, before they built those apartment complexes. Olivia turned to look at him, trying to reconcile this personal detail with her image of James. Blackwood, the business titan whose childhood she'd always imagined unfolding in mansions and private schools. The yellow house with the wrap-around porch, she asked. It's still there. I walk past it sometimes on my way to the farmer's market. Something flickered in his eyes. Nostalgia, perhaps even vulnerability. My mother planted hydrangeas along that porch every spring. They're still there, Olivia said softly. Blue ones. The car slowed as they approached her apartment building, a converted textile factory with exposed brick and tall windows. Rain continued to pour, drumming against the roof. "This is me," she said, gesturing to the entrance. "Thank you for the ride. And for—" She hesitated, unsure how to name all the small gestures of the day. "You're welcome, Olivia." His voice lingered on her name in a way that sent warmth spreading through her chest. An awkward moment passed as neither seemed ready to end the encounter. Finally, James reached into the back seat and retrieved a sleek black umbrella. "Here," he said, offering it to her. "So you'll have one tomorrow." Their fingers brushed during the exchange, a brief contact that sent an unexpected current between them. Olivia stepped out into the rain, the umbrella shielding her as she hurried toward her building. At the entrance, she turned to wave, finding him still watching from the car, waiting to ensure she got inside safely. Later that evening, her phone chimed with a message. "Did you make it home all right?" James had written 30 minutes after dropping her off. Olivia smiled at the screen. "I did. The umbrella worked perfectly. Thank you again." "My pleasure. I enjoyed our drive. It's nice discovering connections." Beyond the office, she hesitated before responding, fingers hovering over the keyboard. This was uncharted territory. "It was unexpected," she finally wrote. "But nice." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then reappeared as he composed his reply. "I've been thinking about what you wrote in that accidental text, about being seen. I wonder if we're both guilty of hiding behind our professional roles." The message's honesty startled her. This was a different James Blackwood than the composed executive she'd worked under for 2 years. "Maybe we are," she admitted. "It's easier sometimes." "Easier, but lonely," came his response. "What else should I know about Olivia Reed beyond excellent marketing strategies and perfect quarterly reports?" She curled up in her window seat, watching raindrops trace patterns down the glass as she considered his question. "I paint watercolors on weekends. I have an unreasonable love of detective novels. I make terrible pancakes, but excellent pasta sauce. I wanted to be a marine biologist until a high school trip when I discovered I get catastrophically seasick." His reply made her laugh aloud. "Terrible pancakes. This requires explanation. How does one fail at pancakes?" Their exchange continued well into the night, moving from pancake disasters to childhood memories, favorite books, and dreams deferred. She learned he played chess competitively in college, collected vintage jazz records, and could name every constellation in the northern sky, a skill taught by his grandfather during summers spent at a cabin in the mountains. "I haven't talked about that cabin in years," he wrote. "The company consumed everything after my father died. Sometimes I wonder what happened to that version of myself." "He's still there," Olivia responded, "just hiding behind impressive suits and corner offices." Morning found her bleary-eyed but smiling, their conversation having ended past midnight with his reluctant admission that they both needed sleep. A curious lightness accompanied her through her morning routine, a sense that something significant had shifted in her world. At the office, James maintained his professional demeanor, but subtle changes were evident. His customary nod when passing her desk now included a hint of a smile. In the creative review meeting, he casually mentioned a detective novel they'd discussed, asking if she'd read it, a personal reference that caused several colleagues to exchange glances. Their text exchanges continued over the following weeks, becoming a daily rhythm. Morning messages about upcoming meetings gave way to evening conversations that meandered through topics far removed from balance sheets and marketing strategies. He sent her photos of a chess match he was playing against himself. She responded with pictures of her latest watercolor attempt. During a particularly stressful project launch, when Olivia worked late into the evening, a delivery arrived from her favorite Thai restaurant with a note, "Remember to eat. The Henderson campaign will survive if you take a dinner break." In return, when she noticed him rubbing his temples during a tense call with investors, she left a cup of ginger tea on his desk, something he'd mentioned his grandmother making. "For headaches, Their growing connection remained largely invisible to others, conducted through text messages and small gestures that could be explained away as professional courtesy. But Olivia found herself increasingly distracted by his presence, noticing details she'd previously overlooked, the way his voice deepened when he was passionate about an idea, how his eyes crinkled slightly at the corners when genuinely amused, the graceful precision of his hands when explaining concepts. "Have dinner with me tomorrow night," his message read on Friday evening as Olivia was leaving the office. "Not as your boss, just as James." She stood motionless in the elevator, staring at the 7 words that crystallized the unspoken question, hanging between them. This was no longer about a misdirected text or professional mentorship. This was an invitation to step deliberately across a line they'd been circling for weeks. Her heart raced as she typed her reply, knowing her answer would change everything. "I'd like that, just as Olivia." Conflicted, Heart's Olivia stood before her closet, discarding outfit after outfit onto her bed. Nothing seemed right for this impossible-to-define evening ahead. A cocktail dress felt too presumptuous, work attire too impersonal, casual wear too indifferent. The clock ticked relentlessly towards 7 o'clock. "This is insane," she muttered to herself, finally settling on a deep burgundy wrap dress she'd bought months ago but never found occasion to wear. As she fastened small gold earrings, her phone chimed with a message from Jessica. "Good luck on your mystery date. Still can't believe you won't tell me who he is. Must be someone special to have you this nervous." Olivia sighed, guilt twisting in her stomach. She told Jessica she was meeting someone but had carefully avoided mentioning it was James. Even in her thoughts, she couldn't fully articulate what was happening between them, let alone explain it to her best friend. The intercom buzzed precisely at 7. James Blackwood was many things, but never late. He waited on the sidewalk beside a different car than his usual Audi, a vintage Jaguar in British racing green. The sight of him in dark jeans and a charcoal cashmere sweater instead of his customary suit momentarily stopped her breath. This was James, not Mr. Blackwood, CEO. "You look beautiful," he said simply, his eyes warm with appreciation. "That color suits you." "Thank you." Olivia felt suddenly shy. "Nice car." A smile touched his lips. "A weekend indulgence. My father restored it before he died." The restaurant was not what she expected, not one of the sleek, expensive establishments where Blackwood Industries entertained clients, but a small, family-owned Italian place tucked on a quiet side street in the Old Quarter. The owner greeted James by name, leading them to a corner table partly secluded by a wooden trellis draped with fairy lights and vines. "You come here often?" Olivia asked as they settled in. "Since college," James admitted. "Enzo's son and I were roommates. This place feels more like home than my actual apartment sometimes." The evening unfolded with remarkable ease. Over handmade pasta and rich red wine, conversation flowed naturally, building on foundations laid during their weeks of text exchanges. James spoke about his father's early death and the weight of responsibility that fell on him at 26, inheriting a struggling company with 300 employees depending on its survival. "I became the role," he confessed, twirling pasta on his fork. James Blackwood, CEO, consumed James Blackwood, the person. It felt necessary at the time. "And now?" Olivia asked softly. His eyes met hers across the candlelit table. "Now I'm remembering. There's more to life than quarterly projections." "Can I ask you something?" she ventured as they leaned against the railing, watching a boat glide past. "Why did you respond the way you did to my accidental text? You could have ignored it or been